I am back. Let me just turn down the volume so you guys can hear me. So, okay. Net neutrality has now been revoked as of the date of this video. I think 3 Republicans voted against it and 2 Democrats voted for it. It's it's just it's just I don't have words to describe how pissed off I am. Um, this could have been avoided. This could have been pissed off I am. This could have been just basically just avoided in general, but okay, I'm gonna try to give you a brief history because it's not the first time, it's not the second time, it's not the third time this has happened. This has happened many times, so I'm gonna give you a brief overview of how many times this has happened, how many times has been forwarded. This is not the first time that the FCC tried to pass this bill, or what? Yeah, right now it's a bill. Basically, okay, let's start. In 1996, Congress passed the sweeping Telecommunications Act, deregulating whole segments of electronic media. The Telecommunications Act sought to provide an optional balance of competing corporate interest, which is good, right? Competition is good, and competition is equal for all. You get the best product because competition is out there. But the result of the deregulation was a sudden merge of previously distinct kinds of media in order to create more multimedia approach of communicating information and entertainment. This paved the way for the creation of the multimedia corporations like Viacom, Time Warner, and Comcast, basically monopolies on telecommunications, the internet, and internet providers and ISPs. So in June of 2003, the federal this isn't, like I said, this is not the first time. In 2003, the FCC attempted to build these deregulatory changes by proposing to increase the total national audience a corporation can reach from 35% to 45%. Since the total national audience is measured by how many stations a corporation owns, this increase would allow corporations to own television stations. So what they're talking about is, since these corporations, Viacom, Time Warner, Comcast, owned all these television stations, and the audience was basically seeing these type of things, these corporations were able to grab more basically TV stations, and they were able to basically do a pseudo monopoly on what you can watch, what you can see, and what you can hear, basically on television stations. So this is a direct violation of capitalism. You don't want a monopoly. So both Republicans and Democrats in Congress oppose the FCC changes, arguing that the country needs more and not less media diversification, given an increase in media outlet consolidation. Furthermore, many ideological opposing groups also argued against media consolidation. Conservative religious groups believe that large media corporations purely imported content, and liberal groups believe the less diversification kills community-based media. Finally, there was a general public outcry, with legislators receiving angry letters and emails demanding that the Congress stop the FCC. So what this was saying is, and this was in 2003, where Viacom, Time Warner, and Comcast had virtual monopolies on what you can watch and what you can see. The Republican side said, like I said, the Republican side said that people can be influenced by basically freedom of speech is impaired and they can be influenced by. Basically, they didn't want you thinking one way or the other, and the Democrats said that they wanted more competition in this, and it can't be just three. So, and tell me if this doesn't sound familiar. And also, people were very angry. There was a lot of outcry and angry letters against the FCC and the Congress to stop the FCC from deregulating the Telecommunications Act, basically. So what happened? So Congress passed an amendment to appropriations bill that raised the 35% cap of national audience to 39%, and compromise that allowed the largest corporations to retain their current share. The largest corporation being Viacom had 38.9% in the national audience, and prohibited any further expansion. The FCC attempted to enact another controversial deregulatory changes related to mass cross-ship owner-specific markets placed on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals issued a stay blocking the FCC's changes, and subsequently asked the FCC to revise its proposals. In 2007, the FCC issued a revised rule lifting the cross-ownership ban for televisions and newspapers in 20 of the largest markets, and established procedures to grant waivers and for combinations of smaller markets if they serve the public's interest. So basically, what this happened. This is an example. Like, this is exactly what's happening right now. In 1996, Congress passed the Telecommunications Act that deregulated whole segments of electronic media, which is awesome. Less government intervention of what you can see, more competition, more anything. This gave way to pseudo monopolies of audiences, and these three big companies buying up these stations and basically dictating what you can watch and what you can hear and what you can see. So if you own a certain percentage of the audience, the communications, either Viacom, Time Warner, or Comcast can basically buy up your station, and they basically can regulate what you can see, what you can hear, and what you can watch, and basically have these monopolies on what you can see in TV stations. So, and the FCC attempted to deregulate this. They say, hey, if you own 35% of the audience, they basically increased it to 45%, so they can buy up more stuff and more television stations and more everything. So what both Republicans and Democrats did, they stopped the FCC from doing these deregulatory actions, and because of public outcry, because of freedom of speech, and because of religious ideologies of the Republican base, and they basically stop these big companies from buying up more and more TV stations, basically buying up the competition, so that way they don't they can't impose pseudo monopolies on television stations. They said that you can't if your percentage of a certain audience is like 39%, you can't go past that, and you can't buy up any more TV stations. And in the FCC's attempt to enact another deregulatory changes related to media cross ownership of specific markets in the Third Circuit, this was settled in court. And the Court of Appeals said that the FCC cannot make changes, and subsequently asked for the FCC to remove its proposals. And in 2007, they did another one. They tried to do this again, and it was issued a revised lifting the cross ownership ban of television stations. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, and what I'm trying to do is that hey, this has happened before and this has been repealed before. The exact same things that are happening. These big corporations that want to basically buy up the competition and throttle what you can watch and what you can see and what you can do. This was settled by Congress, this was stopped by Congress, and this was stopped by the Court of Appeals. So, what happens now is um, the FCC doesn't have the power to outright ban net neutrality. What this is going to do is basically go to the court system and go to Congress. And what we're seeing right now is a public outcry of people saying that we want net neutrality, and they're going to be emailing their congressmen and writing letters to legislators and saying that they have to stop the FCC. Also, the court system is going to be working against the FCC. We're already seeing states band together and telling them, filing lawsuits saying that the FCC does not have the power to declare the open internet be a private, basically privatizing the internet. This they could argue that this is against freedom of commerce and interstate commerce. Like, you can't have let's say one state has one thing and one internet provider, and it's Comcast, and let's say another state has four different internet providers, and the ISPs, the landlines, basically the internet lines, crosses state lines. So they can argue that, saying that this can what's it called? This violates interstate commerce, saying you can't have something that another state has, and you can't have something in one state that another state does not have. So, in retrospect, the court system can argue, saying, "Hey, this violates interstate commerce, and you cannot throttle, or you can't privatize an open internet, an open market, basically." So, there's one way that this can be saved. Basically, this has to be settled in court, and this has to be settled in Congress. And right now, what we're seeing is the court systems are gearing up. Congress is gearing up. Congress, I think a majority of the senators want net neutrality, and the court system, many states are filing suit. I think these Google, Netflix, and these big websites, YouTube and everything, are gearing up to file lawsuits against the FCC. So it's going to be battled in court. Basically, this is going to have to be passed in court. Hopefully, what the situation I told you back in 2003, where we had Viacom, Time Warner, and Comcast, trying to buy up the competition, just like right now. Basically, basically, these large internet providers have a pseudo monopoly on ISPs right now, and right now they can argue against these companies, saying that you need more competition in the market, and you can't have pseudo monopolies privatizing the internet. So yeah, there's still hope right now. Yeah, the FCC are dinguses, and right now the Republicans, they either have to vote against or for this, and I think a majority of the senators are against this right now. But either way, if Congress passes this, it has to be settled in courts either way, because you can't have competition buy up. You can't have the competition buy up the other competition. That's monopolies, and that's against interstate commerce and everything. So hopefully my rambling clarify this, and the fight is not over. Net neutrality has to win. It has won before, in other ways. It doesn't necessarily have to apply to net neutrality. With the government regulation of electronic media in general has always had this issue of big corporations trying to buy up the competition, so that way they don't have to deal with more competition in the market. So yeah, the FCC has been stopped before. It has been stopped in 2003 with corporations and with TV stations. So hopefully this doesn't happen again, and history repeats itself, and the FCC is stopped by Congress and stopped in the court system. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video.